Good?
We're good.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll call the meeting to order. This is the March 14th regularly scheduled meeting of the Finance Committee. We have a couple people from the town here. We don't have anybody from the public here, so I don't have to ask if you're recording this separately, so that's good. We're going to get through a couple of things on our agenda, and then we'll get right into articles, unless either of you have updates that you want to give us before we start articles.
And when do you want to do the reserve fund?
We do have a
transfer
spot for that in our agenda. It's after we do articles, so maybe we'll bring that forward after we do a couple other little things.
That's fine.
Okay, the first is the approval of previous minutes. I sent you two sets of minutes, the meeting in March and the meeting in February.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of February and March.
Okay, moved and seconded. You're going to keep track of at least the motions, right?
Okay.
Yep. And then I'll do the minutes as usual. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? It's unanimous vote, 5-0. I sent out reasons. I did get a lot of, for our reasons for the articles we voted so far. A lot of the, I didn't give the full explanation on the no recommendation ones. We have a longer thing that we generally put there, but we'll be going back over a bunch of those and hopefully have a lot fewer of those. I did get a thing from Dan, who sent me a lot of spelling fixes that I fixed those. And one that he asked to be reworded, and it was better wording, so I already did that. But other than that, any problems or concerns or omissions? How are we doing on the recommendations? Anybody look at them? You all looked at them.
I'm surprised that the spelling mistakes in the, I didn't find any.
Oh, okay, well, he found 4 or 5, and I fixed it. Well, I have an old keyboard, so every once in a while you type an L and the L doesn't show up, and so police was, it's no L, so he spotted every one of them, I think, so. So, what we'll do is, I will send those on to the administrator's office, and they'll start putting these into the warrant. And then we'll keep this cycle going where we vote, and then I get a bunch of reasons to you, and then off we go from there. And we'll keep approving them and then keep going through. So can we just have a consensus on that? Does anybody see anything wrong? We're good? All right, moving on. Before we get to our budget, we'll do a transfer request, because it probably is going to have implications on our budget, but we'll have a discussion anyways. And then we'll get to articles.
I think you do have a person here tonight that wants to have reconsideration on one
Yep.
of your other votes, so I just...
Yep.
So, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The request, I happened to get on to DPW to have a discussion. I had an earlier discussion with Lincoln Hooper, the DPW director. He had indicated that there was a employee that works for him that did decide to retire. Normally what we do, as a matter of course, is we know people are going to retire. We have established a separate line item for sick and vacation buyback. These sick and vacation buybacks are entitled in the collective bargaining agreements. He did have an employee come forward and put in a request to retire that he did not anticipate. So the first thing that you see on the request is $24,712 for the payout of that sick leave buyback per the contract. A lot of times these numbers seem pretty high, but just to remind people that we pay 25 cents on the dollar. So having people use their sick time and not, do these buyouts is probably less productivity for us by having them go out so often. And a lot of times these employees are 20-plus year employees that have been working for us. The second, and I think he has on the back, I asked him to look at the elements of unanticipated vehicle maintenance that he had incurred. and he did provide a list of those items that he did not anticipate when the year started. So it came in at 49,564.7. So the combination of those two numbers are $74,276. Just as a item of note, that because we do the solid waste and the C&D, construction and demolition debris, he has a pretty successful operation up there, and it's kind of one of these good news, bad news items that he generally brings in, or the more material he brings in, our revenues go up, but so do our expenses. And we do try to make sure we have a reasonably educated guess at the beginning of each year for how much to anticipate for the spending. And he does anticipate being over almost 100,000 in that category. So we will be utilizing the article that allows for the transfers to make up that shortfall. The positive news is we make up that shortfall, and it does come in the form of revenue, but that will fall to free cash because we didn't anticipate the volumes right. I wish I could say, last year we were actually on target, so we did not have to do a transfer. But this year, you know, again, as the economy booms, we run into that cycle where we bring in more material. That's not part of this request that you have before you, but I just wanted to give you a heads up that on the article regarding fund shortfalls and budget transfers for FY19, that one will surface once we get additional details.
Let me just fully disclose here, next week, I will be starting work at the Highway Department. So I will abstain from voting on this, but we'll conduct a meeting for your benefit as to what you want to do. And you have the option of denying the request, or supporting the request, or encumbering the money to do something with. This does leave the account down to $10,000 after this, by the looks of things. Last year, we didn't use the account at all. Who knows? I mean, the year before, we didn't use it at all. This year, we've already used it a couple of times.
Actually, it's $5,000.
Yeah. So in any event, that's where we are.
If you recuse yourself, Dana, we won't have a quorum. So we
No, we
can't
have-
vote on it,
no.
can
We had a quorum.
You have a
at the start of the
quorum for
meeting.
the
Yeah.
purposes of having a
Yeah.
we? We have a
meeting.
quorum to vote?
No,
Okay.
the vote's still going to be 4 something, or 3-2, or whatever. I'm going to be an abstention, but I'm still present.
So, is there anyone who wishes to make a motion on this transfer request?
I move that we accept this transfer request of $74,276 as presented.
Is there a second?
John's right, quick.
No, I'm just listening.
We need a second to move forward here.
I'll second it.
Okay, thank you. If you don't mind, I'll kind of push this along here. The dilemma that I see is that it leaves us with only $5,000, and we still got several months to go. You know, if this is stuff that is absolutely needed near term, it basically put in the spot where we have to approve it. So is this something that must be funded right now, or could be put off for a month or two, or until we see how things are going? Chris?
Yeah, no, I'm thinking in terms of, I hear you. I would definitely, on the retirement, I believe that individual is retiring within the next 30 days, so that will leave his account. That one probably should be considered.
Okay.
I think on the vehicle maintenance, I mean, if you wanted to take 1 or 2 out of that, just to decrease that cost, just to make it, you know, I think that would be, that would also be something that would be viable, just so we don't, if the Finance Committee is concerned about not leaving yourself any flexibility, then I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
But maybe just to, if I can do the math here, just make the math a little easy. There's a J.C. Madigan utility body, that was $11,850. All these, I did ask him what was unforeseen or unexpected,
Yeah.
but we could probably take that out if you wanted to adjust that number down.
So, John?
I get some questions whenever folks ask. Now, on the sick time, the last update I got for this year's budget, looking, it says the line item for vacation sick time buyback. It had 2019 had a budget of $47,000 in it. And so far, whenever we got these, which was about a month ago, 23,000 of has been spent of that 47,000. Why don't we just take the 24,000 that's requested here, or 24,000 that's requested here, out of that line item that you already have?
Yeah, I think the point, when he did those are people that told him before the budget was developed that they were retiring. So those have been accounted for the people that are retiring in his system. This gentleman just came forward and we weren't anticipating his retirement. So this is above and beyond those numbers.
But isn't this line item, this the general bucket for all the town? It's not just for one person, you think? I mean, one department?
Oh, that's for the, actually, Tom Gagnon, the deputy chief, is retiring. He's retiring April 6th, so that money has been accounted for. That is throughout, that's not just DPW.
So this whole 47,000's already been spent?
Yes.
Is what you're saying?
Yes.
So you need an additional 24.
712, because that was unanticipated.
So,
And on the vehicle, how can you be extraordinary? What, I mean, is this all DPW vehicles and?
No, the DPW does do all of our equipment, so they do police, fire, and DPW. So it does cover all the equipment. I don't know which ones. The direction I gave him was anything that was kind of unanticipated that he should indicate, because that's obviously the rule for the Finance Committee reserve fund transfers, that there has to be unanticipated costs. But I think to the vice chair's point, we could probably reduce, one or two of those, and then as we get a little closer to the end of the year, make an adjustment, see where we are, and then we can always come back.
may I ask the person who made the motion and the second to withdraw them, and we can come back to the document again? And go along the lines of not spending all our money all at once and doing a little bit of cutting here and there.
To be honest, I seconded it just so we could have the discussion, so we could move this, and I'm comfortable with taking back my second.
Who made the motion?
I'll take back the
Okay.
motion, but
So
one
I-
of the things that we could also do is because it looks like DPW will have money in terms of the snow situation. No,
No,
nothing happened.
no. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
Right.
Just, the way we do snow is, again, this is state law, and actually, the chair reminded me of this, I should come forward, that we have $135,000 built into the budget. We have already spent $135,000, and we have overspent that by about 130 more. One thing, I'm supposed to come forward and advise the Finance Committee that we have overdrawn that budget and we will be going into deficit. So we have overdrawn and we will be going into deficit, which is allowed. In terms of, I see the quizzical look.
It's allowed.
So
to snow
what
here.
administration does since I've been here is that we do take some of the free cash and we allocate it towards snow and ice, anticipating that we will have, it's gonna snow. And the reason why we don't adjust the 135 that we put in, this stuff, you can't make up the state law stuff sometimes. If you go higher, you can never reduce the number down. So if we were to go from 135 to 200,000, we can never reduce it down. So it has a system where you only go up. So we have always left it at the 135. We've always provided some allocation because we know it's going to snow. And just, I think in the budget documents, we have 325,000 in free cash allocated towards this, and only 130,000 has been spent. I don't think that that counts the most recent storm, which was about $35,000 for just the,
So may I have a motion to transfer from the reserve fund $24,712 for the sick leave, the employee?
The motion that we transfer that to the sick leave?
All right, is there a second? Angela, discussion? No discussion?
So that will, deplete the sick leave buyback account that you had budgeted plus this reserve on top of that. It's,
well, the retirement of Deputy Chief Gagnon will deplete that, and then the 24/7 was not anticipated, so it's above and beyond.
Further discussion? Being none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Passed.
So what was?
May I suggest that we have a motion to reduce the 49,564 by $11,850, which was for the J.C. Madigan utility body, and $10,000, $10,094.11. So that amount of the 49 will be set aside for reserves. No, that's not right. That's not right.
I'm working on, I'll get you the new number. I had the number for the
Oh, wait a
the
second.
11,850 taken out.
Yeah.
Dana, did you vote on this last one, or did you include himself in both of these first?
Just on
Yeah,
the-
you haven't called for a vote yet on the other one. Did you vote on the
Actually,
other
Jack did call for the vote on the,
Oh,
just
sick
the
leave.
sick time.
one? Okay, I abstained on that one.
You abstained.
I had that as 401. Were you okay with voting?
Yes. Yes.
So it's, what is it, 401 or 501?
501.
1, 2,
6.
501.
It's a new math. It's okay.
Just
Okay.
tired administrator.
Chris, I know I'm late. Can I just ask a quick question about that one?
Absolutely.
The sick time, vacation time, and comp time, are we doing, are we capping how much they can accrue?
Oh, yeah. It's 200 days. The maximum is 200 days. And
Okay.
then 25% of 200 days of their salary. That is town-wide, that
Yeah.
200 days, I
So-
think applies.
May I suggest that the motion be for removing 11,850 and 10,094.11 cents?
And the new number on those two,
Oh,
Is there a need to remove both?
oh,
Jack?
I guess you're 30.
he wanted to remove both of them. Timeout, Jack. Now you have me nervous that I'm not gonna do my math right in this.
We could do a motion of approving 49,564.07 with 10,094.11 and
Okay.
11,850 removed.
I think Chris is going to try to give us updated numbers right now, so.
No, that's not right. I did something wrong.
Yeah, 11,850.
27,619.6.
Good math. Oh, okay.
7 minus 10,
Yep, you're right.
9, 4.
So it's, the total request, less those two items, are 26,000,
26,000.
26,619.96.
That's what I.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman.
So that'd be
Mr. Vice Chair.
49,564.07 minus 26.
The net
You're
total
balanced.
now, the 49,564, if you take out the 10,094 and the 11,850, now nets out to the new number of 26,619.96.
Okay.
$26,619.96.
So that's the motion?
That's the motion, but
And we'll have discussion after, and then a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, discussion.
what concerns me is, I don't think any of us understand or know which of these are really needed, what is really important, et cetera, et cetera. So I would, if we want to come up with that sum of money, that's fine, but I think we've got to give Lincoln an opportunity to either come back later or to come back and have us change the particular ones, because otherwise, no, if the child's name, whatever the heck that is.
Yeah. And we can change our vote. We can change our vote at the time that it should be. If Link comes back and says, that is the most important thing I've got, then we should listen to
Okay,
it.
but he should be asked.
I mean, you will have a second bite at the apple too, because if he runs short in total, then he's gonna run short in total because we know the C and D. And if he continues to run short in this category, then when we do the 3% at the end of the year, the 3% does need to be voted by the selectmen and FinCom. So one way or another, we'll be back to either you or to town meeting.
I just don't want to screw up what we
Oh.
need to be buying.
I agree, you don't want to do that either. We gotta start. Any other discussion? Being none, all in favor say aye. Aye.
I'm going to abstain because I didn't hear all the conversation. I
Okay.
was late.
I'm
Oh,
abstaining.
it's really good.
402.
I missed it.
I left the form, so if you could, okay, Jack has it already.
Yeah.
The original?
He can sign it.
Looks like it, yeah.
I left the original with Dana, I wasn't
Yeah, I
thinking
handed it
about.
over.
The date of the meeting today is the 14th.
Yep.
Thank you for your consideration of those articles.
Number of people present and voting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's 501.
No.
It's actually 6 people here, but
402.
402. And the first one, because you did do them in 2 votes, was 501. And the record probably should reflect that Dana was the one that abstained on those 2.
Okay, so we had transfer voted in the sum of, we got 26.
26,619.96
6.
plus the 24. They didn't.
So 50,
Yeah, the 24.
51,331.96?
56, 20.
No, 51,331.96.
Oh, there's the original.
Oh, wait a minute, here's the original.
Quick math.
Oh, there's the original. Great.
I thought I handed you the
Yeah, it was underneath the piece
You
of
can,
paper.
you can copy that for me there, the right answer.
Okay.
You can do that, that's, okay.
Is that it on that one?
That's
Yeah, I
it, thank
think
you.
That's it,
All right, I'll write this up.
yeah.
We can do our own budget, the Finance Committee budget, after we do articles. We have somebody here that wants to reconsider one of our articles, which I believe is number 31. Is that correct? The rules for the cemetery? So I'd entertain a motion to reconsider that, Article 31. Bless you.
I'll make the motion to reconsider Article 31.
Is there a second? Okay, it's moved to second to reconsider. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Oppose? That's unanimous vote.
Who's second?
Um,
Who made the motion?
I made the motion. Jack seconded.
Just brought you,
Thank you, Alan.
the rules and, Robin Kelly, Cemetery Administrator. So I brought you the rules and regulations from the town of Barnstable, the town of Yarmouth, and a letter from Amy Guzalski. So the Cemetery Commission wanted the well, we changed it, I should start with that. So we had a meeting of the Cemetery Commission on March 5th, and they voted to change the wording on item number 10 from Christmas to holiday decorations, and to remove both number 11 and number 12. So then, in our original wording, we wanted to remove the decorations on January 31st of each year, which we still do. Most of the other towns now don't even allow a lot of the decorations that we are still allowing, and if you read through Barnstable's, which I gave to you to keep for a later date for you guys, but I highlighted and did a tab for you guys, so you could just go right to the one that actually goes to the one. So they only allow natural reefs or Christmas screens, and they are only allowed on the graves from December 1st, and they have to be removed by February 1st. And so then on, if you go to the Town of Yarmouth's website, it says, beginning February 1st, we will remove all holiday and Christmas decorations from all the cemeteries. The reason behind people wanting to remove them, though, is I'm going to read you what Amy wrote me as an email. We just wanted to let you know that the Conservation Administrator and I support the removal of these holiday decorations by January 31st each year from the cemeteries for environmental reasons. Many of our town cemeteries have or abut sensitive wetland resource areas and other natural environments. Materials are not picked up, then tend to find their way into these natural areas. I fully support and appreciate that people want to place holiday items, but agree that they should be picked up in a timely manner. If not, the decorations become debris and contribute to the degradation of these natural resources. So after the windstorms that we had in February, we had the cellophane that's around some potted plants in the lily pond or in the trees or in, that take the guys longer to clean up after the fact. And most of the town cemeteries are now going to asking the people to remove them. I mean, it's over a month after Christmas is over, so.
I just have to put the total.
Any questions?
I'll just make my comments.
Yeah.
First of all, as I told you in my
Yeah.
email, I really don't care what other
Yeah.
towns are doing. This is Harwich, and we kind of do what Harwich does. This has been
Right.
brought up several times before in past town meetings over the past 30 years, and
Right.
been shot down each time. One of the things that you really have to think about is you've got the whole rules
Right.
up in the article this
Right.
year, and there's lots of problems with these rules.
Yep.
In terms of, you take number 2, no vehicle shall be operated in any part of the cemeteries and at speeds no faster than 10 miles an hour. Just doesn't make sense. You have no vehicles, but they gotta go 10 miles an hour. And there's 20 of these kind of situations. And my next motion would be to refer this back to the committee to fix it all. I
Right.
mean, this is crazy. You've been pushing this Christmas from the beginning. Last year it was taken out completely by both parties, Selectmen and the Finance Committee.
Right.
This year, you're pushing it again, but there's so many other things wrong with this, it's unbelievable. So I'm just wondering why the push for this one thing without correcting some of the other problems here.
Well, when we do tours, the commissioners, we walked around all the cemeteries and we looked at all the stuff. Most of the stuff that was bothering the commissioners was all the debris that gets blown around into the cemetery. So that's what they were more concerned about. They did read over the rules. This is what they presented to me that they wanted changed. This is what I'm presenting to you from them.
Okay, there does say in here, under number 6, that a copy of the Association for Gravestone Studies pamphlet, Gravestones, Rubbings, Do's and Don'ts,
Yep,
which tells me that you have an educational pamphlet for that.
right.
That's been my message all the way through this, is for you guys to put up some signage. We have signage at the beaches. We have the chance to do some, let me finish, do some informational kind of stuff, some teaching. Let's take a nice lighthearted approach to this rather than thou shalt not. And that's what your message in here is, thou shalt not. let's put up some decent signage, let's do some education, let's do up some do's and don'ts and what you're requesting, and ask people to do it. Get some voluntary cooperation on this before we start saying thou shalt not. It's just my opinion, strongly held.
Any other questions?
You're asking to remove all
So,
decorations and monuments, and I drove through Island Park, and I saw Budweiser cans sitting on top of gravestones, I saw Coke cans, I saw piles of rocks, I saw teddy bears, I saw all sorts of stuff.
right.
So you're asking to remove all this?
We want to remove all the stuff that they leave at Christmas time, and people leave different things. So so they just removed a whole bunch of teddy bears that I said, please remove those. They've been there for over a year, and they get covered with water, and they look terrible.
So why not remove everything? I think that takes to agree with Dana. You gotta make rules that apply to everything. You just can't pick on Christmas tree lights or Christmas tree decorations. The Budweiser cans have to go, the Jack Daniels bottles have to go.
Yes, they
I know
do.
people memorializing who's ever in those
Right.
with that particular item, but why are we picking on Christmas? I know they blow around, I understand the liberties, but
Yeah.
I think everything should be removed.
So no decorations at all.
Well, no, you have a time frame or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, I think there should be a time frame as far as when you put things down and how long they're allowed to sit.
Yeah.
You know, again, whether it's a beer can, whether it's, you know, it could be an Easter flower.
Right.
I'm gonna put flowers out for Easter, and there's no rule about that. So I think the rules need to be reworked to kind of cover all situations that may come up.
Okay.
Dana?
Thank you, Jack. The town is not liable for any injury sustained by any person participating in recreational activity. There's no definition of that, but
They-
within the cemetery
their
property.
kids were skateboarding. Sorry.
I'm just saying the town's going to be sued either way,
Right.
whether that's in there or not. Firearms shall not be discharged in the cemeteries. They can be allowed to be brought in, but they can't be discharged unless it's a military funeral. And there's no definition of a military funeral. Number 5, single cremation in Harwich Center Cemetery is in the rules here, and that's one of the cemeteries you're removing later in the rules.
That's correct.
Cemetery Commission reserves the right to remove any plantings that become unsightly. Who defines that? And then we've already talked about those other 3 that I would ask. Monuments and other structures that are not in compliance are subject to removal without notice. What's the time rush here? Why not notice people and say, by the way, this was put in the wrong spot, or this has the wrong spelling, or this has whatever problem it has? Notify the people and ask what's going on. How can we fix this? What can you do? This, you're just gonna remove it with no notice. There's a bunch of garbage in here. I'm sorry, and it's our town rules, and it needs to get the whole thing fixed. So my motion, again, would be, I move that we refer this back to the committee for future study and have them bring something forward that makes sense.
Is there a second?
Second.
Tom?
I mean,
Further discussion? Dana?
the idea was to try and do the one thing,
Right.
get the 2 things in there that you need done, the change of address and so forth. But then I keep looking at it and I keep seeing more and more stuff that's just wrong.
Lori?
Just a couple of comments. I know John said he would like everything removed, and mentioned, how, I don't know how you would time it, that this gravestone had something put in March 1st, and this stone had something fit. So the enforcement of something like that, I think, would be very, very difficult, which is why I think you're kind of zeroing in on a major holiday
Right.
that has probably the most decorations.
It does.
But I agree, there should be some kind of a way, and I don't know what that is, but, and in regards to what you're saying is, if she takes this back to look at this, can we then put in some kind of a removal, have you look into that to include that in here, the removal, and clarify how it will be enforced and how you'll set that up?
Further discussion?
One thing, you actually took a action a couple weeks ago, and that action was to not take any other motions or relative to the changes other than the address change and the taking the cemetery off. So I think if you're gonna reconsider.
We have already reconsidered the article, and we voted to
You
reconsider.
wanna leave those two in there, and then, or do you wanna have everything go back for reconsideration?
I mean, that right now is my compromise position. We want to try and get those two things accomplished. I would love to do that, but I keep getting hit with these decorations, and it's time to start saying, look, this whole thing needs some work. So I don't mind going back to fixing the two things and getting that done, and then send the rest of this back and have them come forward. What does a pumpkin look like after it's sat there from now until January 31st? No one starts cleaning out there until the 1st of March, weather permitting. We're gonna tell people they have to take stuff off, but if there's a blizzard out there, it's all buried anyways. They're not gonna find it till later anyways. So it's for our people's convenience, not for the people who go and mourn, not for the people who bring stuff there. It's for our convenience, and I'd rather not work in that direction. And I would rather try the softer, gentler approach of asking people, working with them, educating them, telling them what we want to do, signage and pamphlets.
Yeah, I think they wanted to come up with
advertisements.
Yeah, a date, so that when we made the new signs for the cemetery, we could say, have some of the rules like some of the other cemeteries do around the Cape, but it actually says when the holiday decorations have to be removed on their signs, and we don't have that date now, so that's why they were trying to pick a date.
Right.
Yes.
If you have a date, and the next day, person dies, and has a plot there, okay? So you say, by March 1st, everything can be removed. And the next day, say March 29th, there's an interment, and all of a sudden the person's got one day to mourn because you set it, you set a date.
Well, that's on holiday decorations, not on stuff left at the
Well, there's
grave.
also the situation where someone passes away on Christmas Day, but they don't bury them until March, and then as honor to them, they put some Christmas decorations. I mean, there's all kinds of ways that people mourn. It's just, it's unbelievable. There are caskets now that will sing happy birthday to you on your birthday. There's all kinds of stuff out there that people can do or want to do, and we're trying to regulate it. We're trying to come up with rules. So let's go through and vote to do the two things, correct the address of your office, and correct the, taking Harwich Center out, even though it's listed as something later.
Can we actually take it out of that other section too?
I believe a motion could do that, yes. So
Because if
we'll,
it's, you're taking it off on the bottom, you're gonna take it off everywhere.
something you didn't recommend, but we can certainly, the Finance Committee, include that in a motion. So I'll withdraw my motion to just send it back to committee, if you'll withdraw your second, and I'll try a new motion. Is that all right?
Yeah, that's fine, but let me just ask you a question. That'll cover two things. What you're suggesting is that the committee goes back and does the whole set of regulations when it comes back, and then gets them implemented at one time. The other thing that's possible is because we're pretty close, I think they're pretty close on the holiday removal stuff. Would it make more sense to start with that simple one of suggesting that everything be removed 3 days after the holiday or something like that? So that people start doing it, because otherwise, this is, it's just gonna go on and on and on and on and on and on.
We could do March 1st.
I have less trouble with that than the other one,
Yeah.
but again, if you're gonna, and I agree that you shouldn't have Christmas there. If you're gonna switch it
But
to
we already,
holiday,
we switched it to holiday.
if you switch it to holiday,
Yeah.
which isn't here in the word, I don't know if they can fix, the warrant's already signed and done now. So this is all gonna have to be done with motions.
On the, yeah,
So if we fix that and fix the date, it just gets that much more complicated. And you're right, if someone puts down something for Easter or something for the 4th of July or something, it's all staying until March 31st.
yeah, it's not as much stuff, though. the Christmas stuff that people put
It'll
down.
be this year. I'm going to see all my Civil War veterans this year. Sorry.
Is there any further discussion?
No, well, that was
Well, wait a minute.
we need a new motion now. Yeah, I'm sure. So, I would move that we accept and adopt this. And that we take out the last sentence in 10, we take out 11 and 12. And we also take out in interment, section 2, item number 5, which is single cremations in Harwich Cemetery, that whole section.
Yep.
And that will solve the missing cemetery and the address problem. That's my motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Angelo. Any discussion on this motion?
Because there's a lot of other things to be
Yep.
fixed, let's get them right, let's figure out how to do it. I'll even work with them, I'm gonna be unencumbered, but I don't mind that part. I just think that, no vehicles, but they can only go 10 miles an hour. You can't say that. You can't say there'll be no vehicles, and then they can only go 10 miles an hour. There's either vehicles or there isn't. Stuff like that. Let's fix some of these things that are just wrong.
Well, my question on the motion would be that, things that need to be fixed, and we're voting that it's okay, but then they have to go back and be fixed. So we're voting on something we know is wrong and hoping it's gonna be fixed.
Right, and I think that we can make that clear in our explanation.
Okay.
That's what I'm
And,
saying.
and that, I'll include that when we do our reasons. But, again, our reasons are, we are sending this back to them for some more work. We're trying to fix the obvious and get some more work done. Does that make sense?
Okay, just want to-
Does that make
Okay, we have
sense
a
to you?
Yep.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Being none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes. Dana?
Aye.
Thank you, Robin.
Yeah.
Teddy bears,
Do you want him to
hurricanes.
fill in the money?
God almighty.
Were the Jack Daniels full?
Okay, where are we here?
It wasn't after you left.
All right, do we want to go back to, let's go right to articles now, and again, we'll do our budget after that. The first one, Article 20, is one I'm going to step down on, is to reconstruct Lower County Road.
Well, maybe we should be doing this. Is motion?
What was the vote last time
What's that?
on Lower County Road? Did you
We
take
had
it?
no
No
that
motion.
that one was a hold one from before, so we had no, you need this?
Yeah, I'm gonna have one.
I have 20s, but it's all County Road.
They moved up one notch. right?
They did. Item four was taken out, the 4 to 6% was removed, so all the numbers shifted up.
So, Article 20, reconstruct Lower County. Do we have a motion of some sort on that one?
Well, I think the motion is first, right?
Yeah. Motion, second, vote,
To open.
discussion, vote, yeah, yeah.
I'll make a motion that we, for discussion on Article 21.
I'll second that.
Have a second?
Is that to accept and
Huh?
adopt it?
No, for discussion. Done? It was just for open discussion?
Yeah.
Okay,
What has changed since 2 weeks ago? I mean, we held it for what reason? Because we didn't know the full understanding of the costs? Or what the selectmen have done yet, or?
Just because it was on the last agenda. It was held because the selectmen hadn't voted yet to put it in the warrant. They had
Correct.
held it.
And they
So,
now have
now they
voted to
have voted to
put it in.
That's the only
They voted to
reason.
put it in the warrant, they have
Right.
not taken an opinion yet. I don't believe that they, haven't taken it.
We haven't considered whether we do
Why don't we wait till they?
I mean, we don't need
Yeah.
the selectmen to decide what we want to do about this article.
Right.
Well, so, and they just included in the warrant at this point.
They included in the warrant, that's
What
correct.
they've done. So, do we have a stance that we want to take at this point?
Do you want me to do a reminder of what we're doing?
Sure.
So the project, obviously, we've had been in there. Last year, town meeting voted to approve the putting in water lines, replacing the water lines in that area. So the road is chopped up. We did not anticipate that we would have to bring the road back to full standard, so we didn't ask the water department to do that. Lincoln Hooper has done what they call a book job, so we did not have to go out and get it fully designed. What a book job means is that what you see out there is basically what you're going to get back. In terms of this, we did not go through a TIP program, the federal program, Transportation Improvement Program, because that would require bike lanes on both sides, sidewalks on both sides, unless an exception could be obtained. The estimated cost on this is $5.4 million. In order to try to decrease the tax impact, we anticipate and did include in here under the road maintenance program, the general road maintenance program, we anticipate taking about $1 million of that. So if it's 5.4 minus the $1 million that we would take out of the road maintenance, that we anticipate that it would be about $4.4 million that would actually be on the on people's taxes. That would be included in that. We do have it out to bid. I'm trying to remember when the bid's due back in. I want to say the middle of April. So we will go into town meeting with a firm number for how much needs to be actually appropriated. Mr. Hooper believes that the number will come in less than what was projected, but that's, at this point, that's his belief, and we don't know what that actual number is until we get to town meeting.
Okay. Anybody else have talked this motion?
A question. So you're asking for $4.4 million, $4.5 million.
Correct.
For the road construction.
Correct.
And what's the $1 million for?
The project in total is 5.4.
Okay.
We're taking $1 million. We were requested to find a mechanism to decrease the cost to the taxpayer, so we're taking it out of the road program. And just for disclosure, I mean, the road program, we had roads scheduled for that will now be pushed back.
And this is the debt exclusion.
It would be a debt exclusion. There's
What's
two
the
debt
total-
exclusions that
What's the
are
total cost? We're going to borrow 4.5.
4.5.
What's our total cost to pay that with principals and interest?
We didn't calculate that out for, did you have it? So we do have it. We project what it would be. So if you borrow the 4.5 over 20 years, I think we would borrow it at 20 years at 5% is probably the interest rate that we would use for projection purposes. Obviously, depends, the marketplace determines the actual number. But if you want that, I mean, Carol probably can get down and get the,
You know what the total number that we're putting on the taxpayer's budget? I mean, burden, we're putting more than 4.5 million on the taxpayer.
yeah, I think that's,
Any rough guesstimate of how much that would add to the cost?
if we could have, give Carol a few minutes to go down and get those numbers.
Well, it's, I mean, is it 10% of that number that would, I have no idea what, 20 years?
I mean, generally, as a rule, if you have 5% and it's 20 years, you're probably paying, interest would probably be close to that 4.4. You'd probably be paying a similar amount.
Is
John.
Is 20 years the total length that you can borrow?
It probably is on that.
So you divide the 4.5 by 20 and then add the interest.
I think there are a couple of things that, I'm sorry.
I want to put the total cost.
Well, she'll be right back.
We did provide that earlier, so she has it.
Tom?
So, we're gonna borrow the 4.5 million, but we still have to come, the town has to come up with another million
We
from
would,
a different fund.
we
It's
would,
still town money.
yes, yes.
Okay.
And we would take that, just for the, you guys already voted the road maintenance program, that's $1.4 million. We actually have $700,000 that we have done historically out of the program. That we only borrow for short term, no more than 5 years, so we roll that over each year, pay a certain amount. So that has limited tax impact because we always pay about $300,000 to $350,000 per year on that program. So we borrow that short term. And then out of that 1.4 million, the other 700,000 comes from Chapter 90 money. So money that comes from state gasoline tax. So obviously, if we use that as a funding source relative to this, there would be no borrowing costs.
No borrowing costs, but it's still town money that could be spent on something else.
Yeah, Mr. Hooper does have a road program, so those items, the $1.4 million in road programs would be deferred by, those $1 million worth of roads would be deferred for a year. So he does have roads on there. One of the ones that comes to mind is Great Western Road, is one of the ones I think is the lion's share of the 1.4.
One of the things that strikes me is that it doesn't take much living in New England to have a road to go to Hades, okay? And they break down, compared to lots of areas of the country, they break down fairly fast. And so if we can't stay on top of this, we're facing a bigger bill most likely in a couple, 3 years, I would imagine. Go back to your point then, if we can anticipate it's going to be in bad shape in a few years, then we need to be looking at these budgets and saying, what are the priorities? Okay, and that's basically what your point a second ago.
Exactly, because if we're gonna take $1 million for maintenance from this road and put it over here, then that road's gonna suffer. And so who's to say what road takes priority? And the other point being that if we're spending, okay, we're borrowing 4.5, but we're spending 5 plus, 5.5.
Let's make 5.5, make it easy.
That should be in here, that the townspeople should know what they're voting on as far as, it's gonna cost me 5.5 million, 4.5, which will be borrowed.
It's in the explanation. We made sure we put it in the explanation, or it should be in the explanation.
It is. What isn't is the interest, principal and interest.
Right, that's not in here.
We do provide backup information to that. I don't think we've ever had the principal and interest total in there, to my knowledge, anyway. To your point, administration requested that it be 5.5, and then whatever the bids came in at, so we would keep it clean. I worked for the Board of Selectmen. The Board of Selectmen requested to find a way to decrease that tax impact. So that was what we came up with, was to defer the road maintenance.
I think there are two things we have to decide. One is, I can tell you, the road is in terrible condition. It's been in terrible condition for 10 years. If we
So the grand
working
total
on it,
is-
the condition's not gonna get any better. The price to fix it is gonna go up. And instead of spending $4.5 million, it's $6 million, whatever. It's something that has to be done. Nobody's doing this because they like it. It also happens to be a very, very highly traveled on road because it avoids 28 for everybody living in West Harwich. And it takes everybody to 12 different beaches along there. So it's an important road. And I think it's even good for the people coming in to visit, to see that we at least have a road. I think the decision that we don't go through the state and try and widen the sidewalks and the bicycle paths is a good one, because I think that'll never fly and there'll be a lot of issues. So I think this is one of the things we need to do. This is not something that we're doing because we think it's cute. And if you take $5 million.
Yeah, we actually have it. If you borrow $4.5 million at 4.5%, is what we're estimating over 20 years, the total cost is $6,120,000. So about $1,620,000 in interest.
But that's about $300,000 a year.
Yes.
Yeah, so remember, what we're talking about is $300,000 a year. And if you go out a few years, that $300,000 will be probably the price of a bottle of Coke. And it's, the net present value of the money is pretty good at this point. And the stuff that we spend at the end is not going to be worth it at this point.
If you've not done it, you might want to go sit down with Lincoln, look at the plan. Because he's got a very detailed plan that's been guiding him based on things like traffic flow or the state of the road if it's really bad suddenly, like some places on Queen Anne. But he's got that. If you haven't seen it, you might want to take a look.
There's one other point, Jack, it's floods. There's a large portion, not a large, there's 100 yards, 150 yards from that road, that literally floods every time it rains. Which makes it heavy.
I would think that one of the things to keep in mind, I've been in this business a long time, once you start chopping up the road and then you start leaving it, once you get to the subsurface, you've really increased your cost significantly. And one of the things that he's done on this project is there's certain sections of it that will need to be kind of more full depth reconstruction, and then other sections he won't have to go full depth, which means that you don't have as much cost. The longer this delays, this is almost guaranteed to become more expensive.
Approximately 10 years ago, maybe a little sooner, a little later, the budget for the highways was $1 million. Now, and it got cut back to 700.
Well, it's always been 1.4, at least in the time I've been here, but it's 700,000 that the town pays,
Yeah, that's what
and then 700,000 from Chapter 90.
Right.
So we do total those two numbers. Chapter 90 we will get
$1 million plus the capital.
$1 million out of.
Yeah. And so, they took a big chunk out of that budget,
Mhm.
and it's not been replenished. On this, I really, personally, I think this makes a lot of sense to get this money and spend it this way.
And why did we not, again, go after the TIP program?
The TIP program will require that we put sidewalks on both sides, plus you have a bike lane. If you have, and I don't remember the exact width of the road, but if it's 24 feet, in order to get the lane width, plus the bike lane, plus the sidewalk, we would do quite a bit of land takings. And we had a reasonable tough haul on 124 that people didn't want to have part of their land taking. This project, you would have an extensive amount of land taking, is what I've been kind of informed. And when I say that, I don't want to create a fear factor, but you were talking about maybe a foot or two on either side of the road for almost the whole distance. The interesting part of Route 124 is there was minimal land taking because they had enough roadway width to leave the road in the way. So this one, you're almost guaranteed you have quite a bit of neighborhood opposition if you start taking their front yards.
So do we want to take a position on this at this point, or do you want to keep talking about it?
I wanted to keep talking about it.
Go ahead.
I just want to know the total cost of the project. I am in favor of, I will vote permanent for that. But the points that people have been making, digging going up all over this town right now. Who's responsible, and to what degree are they responsible for replacing or refixing what they dig up, Chris? I mean, to the point, we're going to deplete this road maintenance fund in no time flat. One good winter, all those patches are going to pop right out of the ground.
Yeah, just to that point, it's a great point. We obviously have a lot of discussions internally. What Lincoln does is that right now, a lot of the work that's being done is on Queen Anne Road, and that's gas main work. So he has, and we do this more extensively than other towns, but what you'll see is once the gas main work is done, they do a temporary patch. I believe he has them leave the temporary patch for about a year. Generally, some other towns will do it for just one freeze-thaw cycle, so the integrity of the road you kind of get a sense for. By him having them delay a longer time, he gets a good sense for how the road's going to settle. Then he can go in and correct anything, and then they put a total top coat over the entire roadway. So things are banged up now. They will stay banged up for a period of time. He has where they would do the patches one lane width. So he makes them do one lane width and then makes them wait, maybe off on the year, but I think it's a year to make sure that we get full settlement. They fix the settling and then they put the top coat on. So I think once the gas work is done on Queen Anne, we should have a fairly solid road. My only hesitation is we're going to come in and do sewer work, And one of the things that we're gonna do is when we're doing sewer work, we already have made arrangements with the gas company that they will do the temporary patch. The town will come in and then install the sewers, put temporary patch in, and then the gas company will come in and overlay the road. So we have asked them to delay that, so we don't have a nice road that we dig up that we then have to rebuild.
And that's done on the gas company.
On the gas company, yeah. I mean, we all ultimately pay, it's a, you know, utility, but
Okay, thank you.
you're welcome.
Anything further? We had a motion and passed it to discuss, for discussion. Do we have a motion to do something with this article now, like a motion to approve or accept and adopt, or a motion to table? You know, all the options under the Robert's rules.
I'll make a motion to approve Article 21 for the road of Lower County Road.
Second.
Is there a second? Did I get a second? Angela?
Angelo, second.
You're so quiet.
I know.
It's actually Article.
Any discussion about this motion?
Is Article 20?
21.
20.
20?
20.
Yeah.
Reconstruct Lower County
Oh,
Road.
okay, sorry. Article 20.
Yeah, I think I shifted that one.
Oh, shoot, here.
Any discussion? I don't hear any.
No, I'm still a little uncomfortable with the fact that, now looking at, so now it's $6.12 million after we take the payback, plus the $1.5 million we're taking out of our town budget to also pay for. So we're talking $7.5 million that we're throwing into this road.
Yeah, just to be clear, the amount of borrowing on the 700,000, because again, 700,000 comes out of Chapter 90. So every time you fill up your gas tank, there's money that comes out that goes to us. So we get that back as a cash annual allocation. So that has no interest cost. That's something that we expend each year. The 700,000 out of the road maintenance program, we only borrow for up to 5 years. So the interest cost is minimal because we're doing short-term interest. So 2% versus the 4.5. So that would be less. To your point, which is a good point, that the road program that we have for FY '20, $1 million of that out of 1.4, those roads get delayed. And that was per vote or request of the Board of Selectmen. And I think it was Great West, I think Great Western Road was about 900,000 out of that 1.4.
Look at me, I gotta say Chris is correct. We're really concerned about the budget, so we challenged Lane on a couple things. Could the delay part that we're looking for, could we resurface, say, half the Lower County Road and come back to next year to spread it out? Because we're looking at a 7% increase in operating budget this year. So what could we do? Carry that through, and that turns out to be not a feasible option. And so we beat this around a lot of different options. This seems to be the best one, but you're entirely right. It's gonna come back to haunt us some next year that we have to. I will also comment that we had discussion Monday on another road on surfacing it, so we can hire the link to come in. I don't think this next Monday, but maybe
Yeah, he's coming April 1st.
April 1st,
Bob Freitas.
just to relook at the priorities. Because we're gonna have, we wanna double check, you know, what this is doing to us, to your point.
Any further discussion?
Just one quick, the 1.4, is that in the highway expense line item?
No. That's actually done as an article, so the 700,000 would be in the article.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's a capital article.
Article
And
22.
Chapter 90 comes in separately, so it's
The
a
town will be voting on that.
the 700,000, absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay. Are we ready for a vote? Are we ready for a vote?
Yes.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second to accept and adopt Article 21?
20.
20?
20.
20, yeah.
20,
I said-
okay, 20.
I said 21, but it is
Yeah.
20, yes.
All right. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed?
One opposed, one abstain.
And you're abstaining, right?
411?
411.
Good. Good
The old
discussion.
information, 411.
One of the realities is there's no free lunch. If you want to have roads that today's cars will drive on, you don't want the roads to be like Model T Fords.
Okay.
Okay.
Robin's still here. Do you want to discuss the other cemetery articles? While you're here, we might as well, is that any objection to taking those out of order? That would be, okay. That would be
So it's 59,
50,
58 and
58,
59.
59,
58 and 59. 57 is a citizen petition one. The town-sponsored ones are 58 and 59.
but it's also relative. We can talk about 57.
You
I
probably
haven't
do.
got the list yet of, she was supposed to get it to me, but I'm supposed to get a list of
Get a draft around.
all the petitioners. We're going to invite them to our next meeting and talk to all of them. Doesn't preclude us from voting on some of them, but they'll come back before us and we'll have to reconsider them if we vote them.
Do we have to make a motion to
There it
discuss,
is.
or do we have preliminary discussion, the things we want to bring it up for discussion?
Yeah, I'm going to entertain a motion. So Article 58 is establish the pet burial ground revolving fund. Is there a positive motion on that one?
Well, I guess that's the question I'm asking. Should we bring them up to discuss when we don't have all the participants? We haven't heard from all the participants yet. I'm not going to vote on something unless I hear all the participants first.
Okay.
In my opinion,
So, we've done this once before. We did this last week. We made a motion to accept and adopt, and that got defeated. And then we went to a motion to make no recommendation. So, to discuss it, we need a motion.
Okay. Listen,
Do I have a motion to discuss?
I'll make a motion to
Tom,
discuss
thank
it.
you.
Sure.
Angela, second.
what's your article number?
58.
58.
We can share.
Well, I've got them, I just don't have the right number.
Just 58, right?
Actually, Angelo, on your guys' agenda, it actually kind of lays it out pretty easily.
Yeah, it is correct there if you want to grab one of
It's
those.
right there.
I've got it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to have discussion on Article 58. Any discussion on the article to discuss?
Mr. Chairman or Vice Chair, however you want me to say it. I think what the intent behind this is, per the request of the Cemetery Commission, is to create a funding source to finish and to continue to operate the pet burial ground. What this funding source, do you know?
I wonder if I could interrupt and say, right now, the motion is to move things out of order and discuss.
Is it?
And then, once we
Oh,
decide that,
I was confused.
Okay, I'm sorry, I thought
Okay.
you had already made a motion to discuss this, to take it out of order.
yeah,
Yeah.
we take it out of order. That's what we're doing. Any
All those in
discussion
favor?
on
Yeah,
the
go ahead,
motion?
yeah.
Being none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous? Okay. We have a discussion here. Chris?
So, back up. So, in terms of this, what we're looking to do, it's fairly traditional when we have cemeteries that you have various lots. The lots get sold. When the lot gets sold, the funding goes into perpetual care or into a revolving account. What we're trying to do is to kind of duplicate that for the pet burial ground. So I'm going to let Robin talk about the numbers of spaces that are available, but the concept is that we would sell the plot space for a cremated animal, and then the animal would be put in. The revenue that gets generated from that, instead of allocating that to the general fund, we would put that into a revolving account that would be specifically dedicated for work centering around the pet burial ground. Maybe you could talk about what money comes back to the town versus
Right.
what costs are
So,
incurred by
we,
the pet owners.
What we were going to do with this revolving account is as people buy the lots and they pay like $100 for a lot, the money would go into the revolving account. The beginning money that we get in, the 70,000, whatever, is going to be paid back to the general fund from the expenses that have already occurred there. And then the additional $60,000 will pay for the walkway, the markers, and the maintenance of the cemetery.
Okay.
So the idea behind this is 58 generates money solely from fees, not from general taxation. I think there's a lot of confusion about that. There's no taxpayer dollars that's being anticipated. This is fee-driven. And then 58 funds 59. 59 pays the town back and finishes the project.
Dana?
I guess that's where my question comes from in terms of paying the town back. When we closed the books, we essentially balanced them. We essentially said, we're taking money from a leftover account under the 3% rule and fixing the amount.
Just so people.
It didn't go to free cash, which it would have done had it been there, but we did fix the account that it came from.
And just
So
to
this
be-
is just to create free cash, this other 70,000.
Well, just to be clear, that administration assumed that cemeteries, whether they were people
Yeah.
or animals, are one and the same. So it was appropriate to fund it out of the cemetery, in our opinion, initially, was to take the money out of the cemetery account, so it was taken out of a cemetery revolving account, to then pay it. Once the town attorney fully analyzed it and fully understood what we were doing, he said, no, you can't do that. It should
And-
come from, to then pick up where you had, we did identify other funds that would have gone to free cash, and we paid that 70,000, because those were committed dollars to a vendor.
And, you know, when the news came out from the attorney that we could not fund that way, the selectmen did the appropriate thing, and they shut the whole thing down and said, we're going to town meeting on this. And that's where we are now.
Yes.
A mistake was made, the selectmen found out and stepped in and shut it down. Town meeting's now gonna decide. Just like the,
Can I
yeah,
make a suggestion on the way you just said something? A mistake was made, and the selectmen took notice and all that, it's all true. But I think the complete answer is, based on town council's ruling, a mistake was made. Okay?
yeah,
Because it wasn't, anybody.
yeah, I'm not,
No, I know you're not, but I'm just saying, people need to understand, the belief was it was okay to do, based on town council. He realized that was not what he should have done, and we reacted to it, and then paid it back.
And just in administration's defense, virtually no other town really has a pet burial business. So we were venturing into new uncharted territory, and we used our best judgment. That came to be told that that wasn't the judgment we should have used. So to the point, I mean, I agree, I wouldn't characterize it as a mistake. When you're in a new venture, you're doing the best you can, and then as you get more information, you refine it.
yeah, I wasn't trying to place blame or anything, I'm trying to just move on from where we are. I have less trouble with paying back or not paying back the 70,000. To me, I think those books are closed, and we're gonna be doing something to create free cash. Big whoop. I mean, we do it all the time, or we have it all the time. Why are we going through that part of the exercise? But just like when we were having the discussion about the 4% and creating an article that is gonna create additional funds, and then in the next article, spending those funds, I have the same kind of problem with this. We're creating a revolving account that doesn't exist and doesn't have any money in it, and when we create it, the next article, 2 minutes later, we're gonna start spending money out of it.
Well, you can't spend it till you get it, though. You can receive it.
We can spend other monies, but I just want to hear more about how we go about that process. We're gonna be gathering the money in and then later putting it into our account.
Yeah, so as money comes into the account, we would reimburse ourselves as the cash becomes available, we would reimburse ourselves in terms of that. We wouldn't have, obviously, $130,000 the next day, so one would hope that we would generate a fair amount of revenue over the course of the year, and then we would do the reimbursement over the course of the year for how much money that generates.
So I personally have no problem creating this account, but I'll probably vote against the next article to spend it in that way. I would come up with an alternative source of money for that, but that's just me.
Any further discussion, folks? What's on Article 58, establish revolving fund?
Well,
Angelo?
I think it's interesting, I'm sorry.
No,
go ahead,
no.
go for it.
What's interesting is, there are a lot of people that have all sorts of problems with concept, and other ones who like it. No matter if we do it, doing it through the revolving fund keeps it out of our taxes, lets the revenue pay for it, and it's a good thing to do because revenue can't go into our general fund anyway. So this is the appropriate way of using the revenue, assuming that we get it. So I think this is a relatively easy yes answer, because otherwise, what are you gonna do with the funds? How are you gonna get your money? What are you gonna do with it?
I think, John, did you have your hand up?
I get it.
Go ahead.
And what would happen if the article before this negates the whole thing?
Then,
And then nothing happens.
Yeah, so that's
Yeah.
why I don't think,
Then you
I'm
pull,
gonna vote no, but I don't think we should be voting on this now. I'd like to hear from the other party, and what their presentation is, and what the numbers are. The good news, I've spoken with Robin extensively about this, and so I, good understanding what Robin's numbers that she presented me are, and whether they're valid or not, that's another discussion, but, so that's my opinion on this. But we
Dana?
vote, but I'm gonna-
I'm sorry, Dana?
I have two questions. Well, first a comment. We can reconsider it at that point if that
Yeah,
article
I
is,
know
if
we
that
talked
idea is
about that,
compelling.
but why don't we, let's vote once? Why don't
Okay.
we reconsider?
Um,
We need information, we don't have the information. Okay.
Dana?
We have the information on this article. My question is, the 140,000 is the cap being proposed later in the warrant for this? And going back to what I started to talk about Monday night, is there ever a mechanism, what happens if 150 comes in? Does that go into the general fund, the other 10, or does any money, do we have an answer?
I do. So it's irrelevant how much comes in, it's the maximum spending limit is what is set by that $140,000. So that revolving fund fiscal year 20 is established at, it would be, if it's approved, would be established at $140,000, and it can never go over the expenditures. Doesn't mean they can't take in $1 million.
Okay, but it stays in that account and none of it ever goes to the general fund.
That's correct.
Is there any mechanism within the laws to be able to do that? Divert a percentage of it to the general fund?
There is, you can do it by bylaw.
Okay,
So, not, currently, 90% of your cemetery lot sales go to a revolving fund, 10% go to a trust. And that's not right by your bylaws.
yeah, I just read that today.
So you could do that.
That
Tom.
answers my question.
Yes. Well, right now, we're discussing Article 58.
Right.
So any money that the pet cemetery collects goes into their fund. And that's what we're discussing.
Yeah.
Not about the 140 revolving
No.
fund, not about
No.
getting rid of it fund. We're
Those are
strictly
different-
on Article 58.
Those are related to different topics.
I understand
Yeah.
that, but I think we're getting off topic is my point. If we're gonna vote on whether or not any money that Robin collects goes into her fund, then we should vote on that, and then worry about Article 59,
Well, that's what the point
not
of
her fund.
58 is, that
where's she gonna
establish,
get the money?
establish the pet burial revolving fund, which goes in, then it goes into her account, okay? And then there's the future thing about 140,000 and all that, but the basic thing is establishing the revolving fund. All right,
And then nothing comes out of taxes, everything comes out of that revolving fund.
Yes.
You want a motion to that effect? We don't have it, we don't.
Well, that's an administrative thing. I mean, we've got revolving funds that we voted on every year,
Oh, yeah?
you know, so it's our vote on several revolving funds further down. And that's basically in the warrant, and the townspeople will get to vote on it. So, one of the nice things about revolving funds is users pay, okay, versus you and I paying, you know, so,
I understand.
and that's the whole mechanism the way it got set up.
Just one quick question, what's the cap on this revolving fund? I always see numbers associated with it, I don't see a number on this one.
140.
140.
The spending.
It's late, it's later, it's Article,
140,000.
Wait a
So
minute,
it's supposed to establish a revolving fund though, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's two mechanisms in law. One, we have to create a bylaw to create the fund, and then on the Article
65.
65, we set the limit. That's a product of the law requires we do it in 2 steps.
So the limit for this is $140,000?
140,000.
For a revolving fund, that cemetery? That's larger than some of the other funds.
40,000 more than the
I think
cemetery.
I think the goal, as was indicated, was to, we know we have $130,000 worth of anticipated spending, so we want to make sure we have the ability to reimburse that account. So we know it's $130,000 that we have to spend.
and again, you know, I think the key comment we've got to keep coming back to is users pay for this. So it's not a taxpayer thing. Anything further on the vote on Article 58?
do you want a motion to accept and adopt it, or? You don't, you
Yeah.
just had a motion to discuss it.
Yeah.
Move to accept and adopt Article 58, create the revolving fund.
Who's the second? Angela. Further discussion on Article 58, Pet Burial Ground Revolving Fund. Any further discussion? Being none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed?
No.
Okay, that was no. Okay,
5-1 dash.
5 to 1.
5 to 1.
Okay. 59, the logical next sequence, apparently. Complete the construction of pet burial grounds. So,
You need a motion.
yeah, we need a motion to, and then we'll have the discussion. Make a motion?
I'll make the motion
Numbers 59,
for Article, to adopt and accept
A&A.
A&A, Article 59.
Is there a second?
I'll second
Angelo. Okay, discussion. Dana?
I guess I'll just go back to what I started to talk about there, and that is that I just think we have to fix it. And whether it goes back to the selectmen in Article 57, which you were talking about, or whether it doesn't, whether it continues on, we still have to fix it. And even if the selectmen have jurisdiction on it, they're gonna wanna either move that new gazebo on it, or they might want to keep it a cemetery. I don't know what they want to do with it. They don't know what they want to do with it. Either way, there would have to be some money in this account. I'm just not comfortable as it coming in the way it's projected to come in through the revolving fund this quickly. I would rather wait for this article to be next year. If we're going to fund this article, I'd rather fund it from free cash than fund it from the revolving fund, this article. That's just my own personal take on it.
Angelo?
There's a line in here that says, funds contained within this appropriation are to come from the sale of pet burial lots and fees. The thing we just approved. So we're not saying that, the town's not saying that we're gonna give them money to do any of this. We're saying they're gonna raise the money, and if they can raise it one day, they can do it one day. If they can raise it in 6 months, they can do it in 6 months.
Mr. Chairman, I think what's being raised is, if Article 57, and I know that we want to talk about only one, but they are
The
kind
hammer's
of all
coming down.
they are kind of all interconnected. It's a two-thirds vote to change that use.
Right.
If the two-thirds vote does not succeed, then the standing vote counts that the cemetery commission maintain jurisdiction of it. And then there, you'd probably want to have the ability to finish the project. If Article 57 does gain the more than two-thirds vote, and the intent is that town meeting has said we want the purpose of the property to be reverted from the cemetery to the selectmen, there's a second step that's needed that we were advised by council, that then you need the cemetery commission to vote by two-thirds to also give up use of it. So a favorable vote on 57 kind of puts things into limbo. A non-favorable vote on 57 then allows for, if you would, for the development of the cemetery to go forward. I think in terms of, and I've said this before, I mean, the passion on both sides is pretty intense. But I think if the assumption is made that 57 doesn't pass, then you would want to have the mechanism to finish the project. And I think the favorable vote on 58 and 59 makes sense. You may want to have a provision where if 57 does pass, then you may want to take some kind of fallback plan that maybe you don't want to then vote to support, because then it really is stuck in limbo. I don't think the selectmen will go against the will of town meeting. If town meeting votes pretty heavily to say no pet burial ground, I think the selectmen are going to be a little bit shell-shocked, or not shell-shocked, but willing to support the will of town meeting. But it all depends upon what happens at town meeting. But I think you have to have a contingency plan for which of the two paths ultimately we go down.
Yeah, and I think we'll have motions prepared for both.
Yeah.
Was your motion for the entire 131?
I didn't
I
specify.
know.
Completing the construction,
Right.
for completing the instruction, and if that's 130,
No, there's two parts to this. One is the 60,720 to reimburse the general fund, and,
right.
I mean, to complete the project, and then $70,280 to reimburse the town for the town.
I think what's being said here, which is kind of interesting, is the town has already paid the contractors for the work that's been done. That work was paid for by taxpayer dollars.
Right.
I know that the selectmen, I don't remember if it was majority vote or what the vote, it probably was a majority vote, not a unanimous vote, were concerned that if you're building a pet burial ground, all the costs, the full 130, should be paid out of the revolving account and not from taxpayers.
Right.
But there are two pieces. The 70,000 is a reimbursement to the taxpayers for payment of what's been done, and then the 60 finishes the project.
And the cemetery commission voted, they wanted to pay it back. So the cemetery commissioners wanted to
Right.
pay back.
I'm in
I have a
finance.
couple
Jack.
questions here. Is Article 57 a selectmen's article?
No,
it's
petition.
Petition.
Have they taken a vote on this one
We
yet?
have not.
No.
The only-
They're doing
Is
all
there a
the
date when you think you'll do that?
I think they're
Roughly?
coming
In a couple
in,
of weeks.
I think they're coming in Monday.
Oh,
Yeah,
they're coming in Monday, but we voted all the articles to.
To put them in the warrant?
Put on the warrant.
But we haven't taken action on any article.
Yeah.
you did a few, but not many.
Yeah, we did a few Monday
Yeah, I
night,
like
but
to hear everybody.
nothing of substance,
Yeah.
significant.
So I'd like to try an amendment anyways, just to make sure we discuss it thoroughly. I would move to amend the motion, which would be to just fund the completion of the pet burial grounds, which is $60,720 from the revolving fund.
Is there a second?
Nobody likes that idea.
I
Answers
think you're
that.
getting some feedback, but we're gonna wait a minute more, because This is a good process. Is there anybody who wants to put the second up? Otherwise, it will fail for lack of a second. And we'll move on with no vote. Nobody wants to second it? I rule that we're going to move on.
Okay.
That was easy. Where do you want to go now?
The main motion is the 130.
Right, we didn't vote that.
Accept and
yet.
adopt.
That's right.
131.
That's right.
So we're back on that.
That's a simple majority. With
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Simple
simple majority.
Along with 58.
Correct.
58 and 59 are simple.
So we're back on Article 59
Yes.
for the whole 131,000.
Right.
Correct.
Okay, Angela read the bottom half. I'm reading the top half. To see if the town will vote to raise, appropriate, and transfer from available funds. So you're paying with town funds.
Yeah.
That's the way it's written.
Yeah, no, that is the way it's written. In every article, we've been advised by council, we should always give ourselves full option to do. The motion then is restricted. So council always advises us to put in all the options available. So almost, I think every single one that's in there has that same wording in it.
That's pretty standard.
But the
still-
motion will be for out of the revolving account.
58 was fine because to set up a revolving account. Fine. Here is telling me I may hit the situation where the town's gonna pay for this, which will be tax dollars.
If you wanted, you could have in your vote that the funding source would be the revolving account.
Then I think this needs to be reworded for the taxpayers.
Well, if I may, my
Yeah, but
memory
that's-
is that the motion always includes a source of funding.
Yeah, yeah,
The article itself does not.
yeah. You don't vote the article, you vote the motion.
It's just been a mechanism of how we've always done it at town, so when Dana and I stand up, they list the source of funding. We've never included in that. You know, if I can comment, I think you're making this more complicated than it needs to be, because all you're doing now is setting up a mechanism so it can be self-contained. Revenues come in from, that's it, and they can pay for that. And if the other motion passes, then this drops out, doesn't go forward. But if we don't do this, then we still have to worry about the $70,000, because we're not having free cash. And then we do have a bigger discussion. This gives the cemetery a chance to raise the funds to pay for moving forward.
Let me,
You know, it's a mechanism to take action.
let me put it a different way. This is the Finance Committee here, and if anybody's gonna try to run a show game on us, it's not gonna work.
Maybe we should-
And I got 7 or 8 people here that will help make that sure, okay? That's an important point. You're bringing up an important point. But at the end of the day, it's gonna go the right way that we're talking about right now. And it'd be messy if it's not done that way.
I just had issue with the way those was
I
worded.
understand. Dana?
And I guess that gets to my point is I think that we're creating our own shell game by the 70,000. I think right now our books are balanced, everything's closed out on that account. Now we're gonna create $70,000 to send it to what account? To
Take it in as revenue.
take it in as revenue. So we're gonna gather this money from pets, give it to ourselves as revenue, so that later it can become free cash.
That's a different debate, but that was one that certainly has some.
But it's in this article.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, that was, a couple of my fellow selectmen had some very
Motion
strong
to accept.
opinions. That the pet cemetery should reimburse the town for money spent going forward. So this gives us an opportunity to do that. Now, we don't know what the revenues are. That may not work out. This gives us the opportunity to do it though. And that was the debate. We had some strong opinions on that side.
Can you repair, continue the grounds fixing? I mean, which comes first? Can you fix the grounds with money that's not there yet?
Well, we have to wait for the money to come in before it can be expended.
So what are you expending first, the 70 and then the 60?
Well, you know as well as I do, I mean, that's up to the selectmen to decide and administration for what priority is given to what. Once the article authorizes it, then the full amount will be reimbursed.
Angelo?
I think that when we do this motion, we include in the motion the fact that all the funds are to come from the fees that are collected. So it's clear, because it is very unclear the way it is written. So if that's the fact, let's put it in our motion, so everybody will see it. Right?
That was probably a motion, right?
Would you be willing to?
Do you want me to say it, try to say it again?
Yeah, with just adding that one line.
Okay.
So this is an amendment to the main motion?
No, this is
Clarification.
just
Clarification,
clarifying her
okay.
motion.
I'll just clarify my motion that it's for the 131, whatever the exact amount is, 131,000. And the funds going into the revolving fund are from, is this what you want? Are from the revenues raised by the pet cemetery. And they'll be used in accordance with the article, 70,000 to pay back the town, 69,000.
Is there a second?
I would say that
Discussion?
it's clear.
We got bow ties on this one. Any discussion? Ready for a vote? All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
3-3.
Motion does not carry.
Motion does not carry.
And I think the hangup is the 70,000 in myself. So,
Well, you know.
based on that, we can just make a motion now to make no recommendation pending further information. We'll hear from the other party on their article. We'll hear where the selectmen end up. We'll have 9 people at some point. We'll have a different mix. So I would move we make no recommendation pending further information.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second from John? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstains?
I'm opposed.
5 to 1.
5 to 1.
Okay. Next.
Do you want to talk about a specific article, or are you just here for fun?
Just here in case any of mine come up and you want to cut something.
You need to get a hobby. Sorry.
Where did we leave?
All right, let's go back to the original list now. So what we'll do is just make sure we're getting, what do we got for time?
It's 5 after 8.
All right, we're going to go till 8:30 like we did last time.
Okay.
Just go through as many as we can.
All right, where do you want to start?
Okay, we're starting with Article 33, solar voltaic energy systems. Anybody got a motion for that? Positive motion?
If you want an overview, I'm happy to do an overview.
Give us a motion first.
Oh. I make a motion to accept and adopt Article 33.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Discussion, questions?
It wasn't on this article.
This changes everything.
So just a quick overview, we're trying to get into the solar business, continuing the solar business. This just allows for us to have a lease agreement that extends beyond 3 years, which is currently allowed by law. It gives us the ability to go out to 20.
Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 6 to 0.
6 to 0.
To 0. Amend agreement between the towns, Monomoy agreement. Is there a positive motion on that one?
Yes, I'll do it.
Jack.
I move that we support amending the agreement between the towns for the Monomoy School District.
Is there a second? I guess I have one major problem with this, and that is it gives the schools ability to buy land. I think we should talk, when we meet next week with Chatham Selectmen, Chatham FinCom, of that one particular part of that. I don't like the idea of the schools being able to buy land. I think we have a really good real estate and open space committee in town that looks at land all the time and should be buying our land and not doing it through the school committee. But this gives them that ability, and I have a major problem with that.
I'm not sure what section you're alluding to, because I thought the two things that are really covered in this is just to get rid of the transition language.
This is an old one that I obviously was not paying attention to the first time it came around,
I missed it this time.
but it's out there.
didn't
It gives
think
them
it-
the ability to buy land. But,
If you could highlight the section, because it's never been relayed to us that that's the intent
All I
behind
know
this.
is that the original work that was done,
They got rid of things that
Didn't have
said
anything
the
to do with that.
transition language for the two towns coming
Right.
together.
that was in the original work. I missed it the original time, back when we were concerned about the $1 million or whatever, the override and all that was going on, and the $4 million that never materialized and everything, and somewhere along the way, I missed that they could buy land, but it is, and I'll find it and send it out to, oh, wait a
Yeah,
minute.
if you could, because that hasn't.
I need to see it, I don't remember that.
Why don't you skip over this one until you find it?
Yeah.
Well, then, that would be my only objection to this.
Yeah, I'll look for that too.
You wanna do
But you're
non-
not talking about something that changed, you're talking about something, that existing language that you would like to change.
Yeah, I would like to
Not recommended?
amend it and change it. If Chatham FinCom would also agree to that, then both sides could do it at town meeting with the same motion, so that it would then pass. But if one does it, it doesn't do anything, it messes the whole thing up. So it is something we'd have to do in conjunction with them.
Right.
So
Well,
it's
and we need a-
available for discussion, but I would still vote to accept this as it is, and then we'll discuss that with them, and if they accept it, and then maybe both of us agree that that was a motion we want to make, by then I'll have it and I'll get it in everybody's hands, but it is in there, they can buy land.
Because
I
the
would like to do it.
recommendation here is you want to change existing language that's not being proposed to be changed in this article.
But just like the cemetery rules, it's in here, and it's gonna be in town meeting, and
I'm just saying, it's not, the only thing this article, we've been purported to us, the only thing that this changes is that when you take and have a reference to Harwich schools and Chatham schools, and the initial transition language for when people get appointed or elected and how long their terms are, that those elements have been taken out.
Right.
So the intent of it is to be as vanilla as they can make it, if you would.
right,
So
and
there's really no
I
substance changes to
I
it.
do know it's muddying up the waters, but you're the town administrator. Do you think the schools are the best, school committees, the best group in our two towns to buy land?
I defer to the selectmen. That's a policy decision, that's a policy decision.
I think it's tricky.
Think about that.
Well, I want, send me the language, I like to see the language.
John?
All right,
Quick question, how big is that agreement, Chris?
It's probably 30 pages.
And it's, who's got the copy, I can get a copy?
We have it.
Okay.
Yeah.
it's on their website.
It was
On our
packet.
website. Yeah, schools.
Yeah, I think it is on their website,
It is.
too.
Yeah.
Actually, if you go into the selectmen's agendas, I think we had we have the changes in there with, you could see the markups.
This past month?
Probably
A
within
couple weeks ago,
a couple weeks ago.
I'd just like to read it.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's on, you can find it on the town website. And there's a column that has all kinds of documents and stuff. I'm pretty sure it's on there.
I've had issues going to our town website trying to find stuff.
but John, it's in the selectmen's packet.
Okay,
Yeah.
Either 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Right.
The weekend getting this.
Dana, I can tell you there,
Yeah, you
It's
can.
public.
yeah.
It's a public package.
Yeah.
Dana,
Okay. Thank
there
you.
was never, to my recollection, any discussion of them being able, the school district being able to buy land. I mean, that was one area where it would have been,
Let me find it and get it to everybody, and then we can talk about it again.
On
But
the
I'm in
list, right.
favor of this going forward. I don't want to hold it up for that, but I
Yeah.
think it's worth noting, and if we all agree, and if Chatham agrees, that we can put together a motion that would satisfy both towns and keep the schools from buying land, I would be in favor of that. But in the meantime, I would vote to support this to go forward.
okay?
You're just gonna send us that, the blurb, Dana, not the whole document?
Yeah, I'll find that one section and.
You want to do not recommended?
No,
For now?
I have a motion, well, we have a motion to accept and adopt. I think
I
that's
know.
fine. Because I think it's going to go forward either way. It's just going to go forward with an amendment or without, which
all right.
we'll attach later.
Here it is.
Does that sound right?
Ready? Ready for a vote?
Yeah.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
6-0.
6-1, 6-0.
Unanimous, right?
When was the draft agenda sent out? I can't.
Yeah.
The draft agenda?
No, it was unanimous, right?
Yeah,
Unanimous.
6-0. For this meeting,
Yeah.
the agenda for this?
No,
do we
no,
have
I'm
an-
sorry, the draft warrant.
Oh, the draft warrant has,
I didn't bring a copy up.
the draft warrant has been on the selectmen's,
We have.
That's regular.
packet
Actually, I don't.
2 or
think
3
we-
weeks ago.
Yeah, the
The last
one
few
was-
changes you made Monday night, I don't
We haven't
know,
got
if
a
somebody's,
revised version.
yeah.
I think we have it on.
They just
for
voted it
night's
Monday,
meeting.
and there were
Okay.
some
I think
changes.
we scanned the final one.
Yeah,
If
we
not,
haven't got it
I'll-
yet.
I'll have them put it on.
Okay.
I'll have Sandy put it on.
Next one is amend the home rule charter to add wastewater committee. And it changes our committee from 3 to 5, and adds, takes the water commission from 3 members to 5 members,
members,
adding the wastewater. I got to read it today. I didn't see any showstoppers myself. Is there a motion?
And the Selectmen and Water Commission have voted favorably on that.
I make a motion, we accept and adopt Article 35.
Second?
So that's Tom and Jack.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 6-0. Home rule charter capital outlay process. The selectmen voted to do 5 years and voted to do the 50,000? No. When they put it in the warrant.
The Selectmen voted to put it in the warrant as presented from the
Okay. all right.
charter review. And council has advised that if they want to change from 7 to 5, that would be within the scope of the article. If they want to change the 50 to 100, that would be within the scope of the article.
Okay.
But we just, the selectmen only voted to put it in as presented.
Right. I think our feeling was.
The 5 and the 50.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
What Chris says is correct.
you may want to do these for new, wait for additional information, just if the capital outlay committee's going to weigh in on it, I just at least.
We like to be
That's a good point.
trendsetters, we don't have to wait for anybody else. I personally would like the 5 years myself, and I think a motion to accept and adopt it, changing it to 5 years is what I would make. And keeping the $50,000 limit.
We're gonna postpone our discussion on our accepting and adopting to get response from capital outlay.
I move we accept and adopt with the 5 years.
Second.
Not clear what the advantages of going down to 5 years.
Well, we've tried it both ways,
Yes.
on the 5 and the 7. If the plan is working the way it's supposed to be, if there's a new year 5 added on each year, then it will be a 6-year process. You think about people trying to get something on the plan right now, all the committees, all the department heads, everybody working to get on the plan. If they started it last year, and it came on the proper way, it came on in the 7th year, you're talking about 2026 before they would get action on their project, it moving up year by year by year. It's not going to keep coming to the front like they were before. That's a long time to expect a committee member. That's like 2.5 terms, 2 2/3 terms for them to be on a committee waiting for this to happen. The 5 years, if you started it last year, you'd be done in a total of 6 years. So it just makes more sense that way. If you look at how we're doing things, we're not projecting out 7 years to figure out whether this is going to be done or that's going to be done. If we're going to do this the right way, the 5-year progression will be fine. It will hit in year 5. It'll be in year 4. It'll be talked about as it's moving forward, and then we'll vote it. I mean, it will be much clearer. But 7 years, people are not going to last that long on the committees to see a process through, if it's done the correct way. If we want to just keep doing what, just bring it in now, let's do it now, no real plan, then what we're doing is fine. But if we're gonna fix it, one of the fixes is to shorten it and make it so people can get through the process. It's my spiel.
What do you say 5 years? Is that in the article?
No,
It says,
Not here.
That's
Oh,
what,
not here.
it's not in the article right now.
Okay.
We would vote it with the amendment. The selectmen, I think, are favoring a 5-year plan.
Well, for the reasons, pretty much what Dana said, is that we've had some discussions, and people argue that
Section
our capital outlay plan
7
no
years.
longer is a strategic
They
plan.
want
it's
amended
like
to
an
5.
operational plan.
That won't talk.
it says,
Yeah. So we're voting on the amendment to 5 years? Is that what we're voting on?
No, the motion that I made was to accept and adopt,
Yeah.
but making it a 5-year plan. So everywhere it says 7, we would change. Originally, it was a 5-year plan, and Peter Hughes, I think, led the charge to change it from 5 to 7. And that's basically what he said. We'll change, every time it says 5, we'll go 7.
if I could make a suggestion, in terms of the 5 or 7, I guess I don't really have too much of an opinion on it. We have gotten a lot of department heads getting trained to understand the 7 years, so there are some departments that do it. But one thing that came up was CPC, the funding sources. And I have an opinion from the town attorney that says I'm supposed to put all CPC articles that are above 50,000 on the capital plan. And CPC, you can only fund year to year. So it's impossible for CPC to have a 5-year plan when their statute tells them that they can only do a 1-year plan. So the recommended solution that was made by the town attorney is just exempt CPC articles from the capital plan, because they cannot comply with the intent of the capital plan.
I have another solution, which is basically the same thing. The last time I talked to town council about this specific thing, CPC, he said if the capital plan in the charter does not say anything about CPC, then they're exempt, just because of the way they were created. But this is gonna take 2 years, right? We voted in May, and then it has to go to an election before this becomes the law of the land. So this is a long process to do. In the meantime, talking to the Charter and Bylaw Review Committee, they think an amendment to the bylaw that creates CPC can fix this. All we're asking is if a project that CPC brings forward meets the definition of a capital project, then that project would take a 2/3 vote. That's all we're asking. So that it wouldn't, a simple majority won't go through CPC process, it will take a 2/3 vote at town meeting. And as we know, if something's worthy, it gets a 2/3 vote, and if it doesn't, it doesn't. So that would be tackled later, and I'm not trying to,
Why wouldn't you amend the charter, because the charter trumps a bylaw, so wouldn't you create a conflict?
I
if you
agree with
amend the
that,
bylaw?
but the Bylaw Charter Review Committee think that it's not fixable in the charter, it's fixable in the bylaw. But I'm not gonna argue with them. They have a social media page.
I've got a different question.
Okay,
If you look at the CPC as a financial group,
Yeah.
like their free cash, and you have a project, and the source of funds becomes CPC, why can't we just do that? And put it on the capital outlay plan? I mean, why not? It's not their project. If they went through the towns group to put it on the capital plan, capital budget group, why not?
well, their stuff can't come in year 5, their stuff has to come in year
So it
1.
comes in year 1. I mean,
And that's what I'm saying, I don't mind it coming in year 1, I just want it to have a 2/3 vote when it meets the definition of a capital project. Jack?
I seem to remember that when I discussed cap outlay and CPC with John Giorgio several years ago, I believe he was of the opinion that capital budget and CPC should have nothing to do with each other. And I'm pretty sure that's documented somewhere in the files. Because it's not it's a different source of money altogether. And that was his main point.
Yeah,
So-
what he's at least advised me in the last 3 years, I have migrated over he said that the charter provision says any project over 50,000 is considered a capital project. So any CPC project that's over 50,000 should be on the capital plan. His recommendation is in the charter, and again, this is just his recommendation, if we don't want to include it in the capital plan, then it should be affirmatively excluded from the capital plan. That doesn't mean, to Angelo's point, I mean, if a department head puts on and says 5 years out, I want to do project X, and as it gets closer, they submit it for CPC for funding,
Right.
I mean, that certainly can always be done, but CPC, by the CPC statute, I haven't looked at that intensely for a long time, but it's a year-to-year spending plan.
Right.
So doing a 5-year plan, when you only have 1 year authorized under statute, not under bylaw or charter, under statute, it creates a conflict. So why not just separate them more permanently?
Right.
And that's what I alluded to Monday night, was that the buildings that they tend to spend their money on should definitely be on the capital plan. Like when this study comes back from Brooks Academy Museum, $1 million, that's got to go on the capital plan. It might be funded through CPC money, but it's going to be on the plan. You know, things like that. So it's a worthy discussion, but this fixes the plan, I think, that from what we've got. Further discussion?
Is the charter review company okay with the 5 years?
They've talked about it. They haven't taken an official vote on it, but they will. And I'm sure that if,
They told us it was up to us.
yeah, Selectmen and Finance Committee are going to lead the way on
We
this
asked them the
one.
question, they didn't have a preference. quite
Right.
frankly.
Yeah.
They said it's up to the selectmen.
We really didn't have a good discussion on it at all.
No.
Yes, I can remember.
Well, I think all
Consensus
these
is-
They're concerned about, this is not one of them.
Are we ready for a vote?
I think so. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's a vote. 6-0.
And
We've
it's-
got 2 more home rule amendments, and then we'll call it a night. Does that sound about right? Because it is getting close to 8:30.
Yeah.
Just one more, the charter ex officio.
Oh, yeah, we just did that one, didn't we?
You just
Sorry.
did the capital outlay.
Okay, I'm getting there.
I'm just saying, one more.
Who made the motion on that one? That was Jack?
I
On the
seconded
capital
it.
outlay was you and Laurie.
Yep. He made the yeah, you made the motion.
Who made that motion?
You made the motion, I seconded.
All right, ex officio members. I'll move to accept and adopt this with, and then I'll move to amend it. I'll move to accept and adopt.
Second?
Move to accept and adopt. Discussion. I guess my one comment was to take the Finance Committee right out of this, because we appoint people to the Capital Outlay Committee, and we don't care whether they're members of ours or not. We want flexibility when we make these appointments. Take a Rich Larios, he's appointed right now by the town administrator. If the town administrator got bored with that and decided not to appoint him some year, it might be something that the Finance Committee decides they want him on there. We could appoint him. This says you gotta match it up with some sort of term which implies they have to be a member of this committee.
Which I am very happy I appointed Rich, just.
No, it's just an example but it says that on those things, we would make the choice of who we want.
Right.
And so, they said they fixed that by making it only to boards that have to do with the Board of Selectmen, appointees of the Board of Selectmen, but I think I would like to at least have in there that the Finance Committee somewhere is exempt from there. But I will put together where it should be and exactly what the wording should be, and I'll bring that forward as an amendment later, if that's okay. But right now, we'll just vote to go forward with it, I think. Does that Sound like a plan?
I guess it's a good one.
Good plan, huh? They're gonna miss me when I'm gone.
Well,
Where you going?
Ah,
speaking of that, before we get.
Yeah.
Hey, Dana.
8:30, I think.
All right,
that-
so, the
Gotta vote.
motion is to accept and adopt. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Good.
It is a vote.
Yay.
Who made the motion on that one?
Dana and Jack. Kind of scary, man. Not really. Just saying.
Just trying to keep everything flowing here. Okay, we got two other things that I want to talk about real quick. I have a packet for everybody on the budget, and I'm just going to hand this out real quick and talk about it. And then we'll go from there. I have a couple of extras. Would you like one?
Yeah.
The selectmen like one? Would you like one in the cheap seats back there? So first off, we have the town administrators, I'll just look up. We have the town administrator's recommendations for reducing the budget. The selectmen took out the article that had the 4%. And he made several recommendations. There's also some things that he had to add in because of other stuff that we found out during the budget process and so forth. So there's some additions and subtractions, but the net result is it's $337,500 less than what it was. I tried to put that on one sheet of paper, at least in the budget, so that you see the original FY 2020 budget, and then you see the town administrator's listing, and I put red for items that came out, and I put green for items that went back in. And then you see another column, which is kind of my stab at how I would balance the budget. I think there's three things that the town administrator took out that I would vote to put back in. And you say, well, where does the money come from? Well, the three things I would put in is the treasurer's citizen self-serve, the 8 additional hours for the COA, and the IT administrator. And of course, if you put that body in, you also have to put some money into insurance. So it's a total of $110,000 I would have to come up with. So one of my first recommendations would be on our own reserve fund is to take $25,000 out of that, which would give us $25,000. Because tonight we did a big dent in our, but traditionally we have not been spending the entire reserve account. And we have new tools to help us. We have the 3% rule. Whenever we have a special, we should include an article that replenishes the reserve fund. We should include that in the annual if we don't, but there should be ways that we can fix the reserve fund each year without having to worry about whether it's 100 or 125. So I think $25,000 could come from that. Also, on one of the things that the town administrator put back in, if you don't have the IT person, then he would put some support money into contracts to have that farmed out. And he's right here, he's gonna speak to it when I'm done, but that's $20,000 there. So there's $45,000 of the 110 that I would need. And the last, I have two other places, he took $25,000 out of the transfer to the sewer enterprise fund. I took $30,000, which is an extra 5, and that leaves one spot left, and that is the overlay account. I would take $30,000 out of overlay to fix all of these things, to fix the three things that I recommended. But that's just the way I would do it, and I just bring it out for discussion, that there are other ways that we can look at what the town administrator did. I think the IT person is very important, and I think those other two things are important. And I think they're less important than what I recommended for changes. So that's just my opinion. Jack?
One of the things that's probably a little bit longer term to get work, but I continue to think that we're doing a nice job of keeping a lot of people happy in our youth and rec programs and our amenities. basketball courts, tennis courts, on and on. But we're not charging anywhere near market rate for those amenities. And, you know, when we're talking about cutting some of these things, it would be nice to get a few bucks here and there where we could, you know, do a better job of taking advantage of the good things we're doing.
Well, that's part of the discussion on all these revolving funds and all the money going into
Right, well,
the revolving accounts instead of any of it going into the general fund.
well, I'm okay with that point. But the reality is that there's no revolving fund. There's just a whole bunch of really good things out there that CPC in particular help pay for. And so it's time to, I hear all this taxpayer talk, it's time to put some of that money to work.
Okay, so rather than bog down on this now, my point tonight was to try and say that there are alternatives. We can take the town administrator's budget as is. It's still balanced. It gets us back into the 60s instead of, I still have to put the final amount on that, but it gets us back into the 60s instead of a $70 million number, so it does all the things that I originally wanted to do. I just think there's a different way to support those people. I'll send you home with this package to challenge you to try and come up with your own versions of how to do things. I put in there things that I got from finance, and that is how the overlay reserve has come to be, what the history of it is for the last several years, so you can see that. That's on one of the pages. You can see the turnbacks, all the different things that that was turned back, and you've got a 3 or 4 year history of that on there. So you've got a nice package to work with. You can do this puzzle the same way I did, but that's a different way that I solved it. Figure out what your priorities are and decide how you want to solve this puzzle. That's the way I would do it. And unless we want to spend the rest of the night on that, I would say we move to reorganization of the board. Would you like,
I was gonna say, I mean, you know.
You might as well make
it's
some
nice-
comments.
It's nice to make a comment and then move to adjourn or move on.
no,
But that's not-
I said you would be able
You
to.
know, I guess I would like to have the opportunity to kind of go through and kind of articulate, and not necessarily at this hour, but maybe I could be on the agenda for the next meeting to just go through.
You're
and
always on the
articulate
agenda.
articulate the rationale for the cuts. I would just say, you know, I was aware of the selectmen's comments, obviously, on Monday night. I do, and I'm not much in the predicting business, but our labor contracts are out of whack, and we're making adjustments to move them up. And if we don't find additional resources, this pressure is gonna continue for the next 3 years. So the 4 to 6%, I know people think maybe I did that on a whim. You know, I usually think things out 2 or 3 years ahead. And it wasn't on a whim. It's to try to avoid having a lot more fiscal issues, because fiscal issues will continue as we move forward. In terms of, I will try to replace the 8 hours over at the Council on Aging. I think that was a really tough call. I do use some long-standing practices that I've always used, that if you have something brand new, then you don't necessarily automatically supplant something else. I didn't get credit Monday night for, I didn't think the surveyor position was needed, so I did cut an existing position that's vacant. And I try very hard to not cut an existing person, because then we have to pay unemployment. And it's almost for every $2 you cut, you only get $1 of value when you cut when you have existing positions. So anyway, I'd like to have an opportunity to go into a little bit more detail. But we are looking to, I appreciate Carol's efforts, that there are a few things, just to kind of disclose. I probably will recommend 25,000 coming out of, we had 125,000 going into OPEB reserves to increase, to continue to pay OPEB. I probably will scale that back to 100, will be the next recommendation that I'll make, because we've received word from the Cape Cod Municipal Health Group that they had been receiving funds over a period of time, reimbursements from Medicare, and they have decided to disperse that to each individual unit that's part of Cape Cod Municipal Health Group. I had no idea how much the scope of that was. All that was done well before my time here. It's $521,000 that will be going into OPEB, which is awesome. So we have that money that will be going in. We just got that material, I think, this morning or yesterday morning. So I don't think we need to continue to put in 25 if we have a one-time amount in addition to the 500 or 450,000 in the plan. So we'll be funding our OPEB obligation 1 million, up to almost $1 million this
We
year.
haven't voted that yet.
Where does that put the OPEB bill?
I think it
60
was
billion short.
42 million, and I think we're getting up to having almost 2 or 3 million.
So it had come down to 40 million?
40 million.
Yeah, and we could expect that to continue to come down, so we're waiting for the new actuarial reports.
Great.
But I think that we're not, like Chris said, we're doing
I mean, this will make a huge dent, and we're being more aggressive than a lot of other communities, and I think we'll have a higher funding schedule. So obviously, more work needs to be done, but I think the cash flow from investments, last time I looked, was almost $40,000 a year that we're generating. My old boss used to call it other people's money, investment income to offset some of those costs. So the bigger that pool gets, the more that money grows on its own.
The OPEB, the $40 million, that includes the schools?
No, it does, they have their own, I don't know their number off the top of my head. We're paying 72%. I don't have their number off the top of my head.
And that's.
Ours is 42 million. Their OPEB obligation is not as large because they don't have as many retirees yet.
24, something like that.
The town still carries the retirees.
We carry the existing retirees prior to the merger of all their professionals,
Schools are
paraprofessionals.
20 million, right? Was that right?
Yeah, it wasn't as big as our number, but it's 24,
Because it's a newer
something like that,
system,
yeah.
it's not quite as much, but
And then we're only responsible, I guess, for 75% of it?
72% roughly is the number.
And you'll note on the documents that I put out that the town administrator's budget did not include any contributions from the schools. Over and above everything that we did, I put a contribution in from the schools, not on their entire budget, which is almost 40 million, whatever their total budget is. I picked the number 175, which seems to be the number that a lot of people are kicking around, and just said that comes off the top, which means Harwich's would go down by, if they vote to do that, would go down by 127 or 137, something like that. We
Yeah,
would
actually,
get
I
70
did have a
some percent.
conversation with the superintendent. I mean, in order, if the target that they were being asked to achieve of 175 out of their general budget, it would be 230,000 worth of cuts that he would have to make.
See, I put the 175 just on the total.
I didn't know on the 175, because we have 175 that we're carrying for, out of our, not stable, out of free cash, to fund the beginning transition dollars for their higher than average special needs costs. But I don't know if that 175, you're not talking about that 175.
No, I just wanted to try and affect the 70 million more, but
Yeah.
that's. So, that's the discussion on the budget. We should reorganize the board, as you know. My status with the town is changing on Monday. I'll be going to work for the town. And in discussing this with my new boss to be, and with town council, with the town moderator who appoints us. I did give him a disclosure document that covers Chapter 19, but again, we both feel that it would be in our best interest that, one, I step down as chair immediately, and two, that after town meeting, I'll be all done on the finance committee. So the first step is tonight to reorganize the board, so I put that on the agenda, and I'm looking for a new chairman. Andrew?
I think before we do that, there's a better step. I'd like to thank you for all the work you've done and all this typing you've done.
Yeah.
And all the
And all the
numbers
trees you
given me.
killed.
And I'm kind of glad you're leaving because I don't have a big enough book.
Mine's gone.
On a serious note, thank you very much for what you've been able to do for us.
What position are you taking?
Now you can't go to
It's
MMA anymore,
the
though.
bottom of the totem pole at the transfer station, so.
Second thing is I'd like to nominate Jack Brown as potentially as our next chairman, based on his having done this for several years and picking it up at this point in time.
So we have a nomination, there's a nomination and a second. Any other nominations?
Oh, I could use a
Speech.
vice, I could use a vice,
Yeah, you are the vice chairman, so you're gonna need a new vice chairman, but
I
we'll
know.
get through the chairmanship first.
Do that next week.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's a unanimous vote, including yourself. And
Thank
do we have a nomination for vice chair?
I'd like
We
to
need-
nominate John. No.
John's our clerk. John's been helping me a lot with that.
Well, I'd like to nominate you, but you won't accept it.
Well, I know Angela doesn't, let me speak for you. I know you didn't want to do the vice chair. Do you want to do the vice chair? And the other person that's missing is, we got a couple people missing that have been around for a few years.
I'll do it.
I think he would make a good
John.
vice chair.
noted Angelo eagerly
What?
accepted.
Make a motion to.
Oh, I'll make a motion to nominate Angelo as the vice chair.
Then I will second that.
It's been moved and seconded to eagerly pull on the bridle of this man and bring him
Okay.
forcefully into the dark. Further discussion, any other nominations? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's done. We have a new organized board. Thank you all.
Before you go, can I just invite you all to come over on Saturday at 10 a.m. for the aerial photo that we're doing for Art Week. And it's becoming more of a big deal because this is like the first time it's being announced. Harwich was selected as one of the towns it's all over Massachusetts, so they have different sections. So we're representing the Cape and the Islands, and we'll be on the TV and local radio stations. So please, we want to get people there. So it would be great to see some important people like yourselves out there with all of us who really just want to push the cultural district and what we're doing in the town of Harwich and how great it is to be here. So
She waited very patiently all night
I
to
know,
give
she
that
did.
announcement.
10 a.m., Carol?
10 a.m. Yes.
At the cultural center.
What should you wear? Just wear whatever you like. Wear at the cultural center.
Don't tell him. Don't tell him that.
Oh, sorry.
Anything else for us tonight?
Cultural center.
Cultural center. Yeah.
Motion to adjourn?
Thank you. Oh.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second? We are adjourned.
So what happened to your other job?
Um,
Congratulations, Angelo.
I'll wait till he,